Hey guys, Keegan Russell here again on the Sports Authority Gurus podcast. This is part 2 of our fantasy football preseason episodes. If you joined us for part 1, which was the last episode, thank you so much. In that last episode, we broke down draft strategy, how to modify that strategy based on where you're drafting, and then we also shared a bunch of our tips that we think are helpful to keep in mind for your draft days. So in today's episode, we are going to dive back into the position players and go through the guys we like, the guys we don't like, and talking about some sleeper picks. So I'm going to bring Alex back on. Alex, thanks again for joining me for this one. Well, let's just get into it. So again, thank you guys if you joined us for part 1. Here is part 2. So let's start with the quarterback position. Main thing I want to go through is, one, who do you like the most out of the quarterback group? Who are the guys, obviously right now we're using Fantasy Pros list, so we're looking at their top positions for top players for each position. So Josh Allen's listed number 1, Justin Herbert number 2, Mahomes number 3, and Lamar Jackson number 4. They kind of have them listed as their tier 1, and then they get into tier 2 with Kyler Murray, Jalen Hurts, Joe Burrow, and Tom Brady, and then tier 3 has a bunch of guys. So just off the bat, who do you like the most out of the first couple tiers? Who do you think has the potential to end up as the top fantasy quarterback?
Yeah, as much as I would love to say Patrick Mahomes, I have a feeling, a sneaky suspicion that this year it's either going to be Joe Burrow or Justin Herbert. I do, as much as I don't want Chargers or the Bills to win. I mean, you can't deny that Justin Herbert is a great quarterback, and he makes plays happen. He gets he's got a crazy arm similar to Mahomes, but he also is decently mobile on it for his build, and he can get the ball to open receivers, and he can make the time in the backfield last as long as he wants it to.
Yeah, Justin Herbert's probably one who for sure finishes top 3. He's just got too much firepower around him and too many options to go to. Josh Allen, of course, I think he's my pick to finish number 1 just because of the running ability, and that could also lead to some more touchdowns down the road. I like the group in tier 2 a lot. It's got Kyler Murray, Jalen Hurts, Joe Burrow. I think those 3 are all guys that have potential with big upside. Jalen Hurts is kind of my deep sleeper for QB1 to finish the year just because of that running ability. And I think now that he's had a little bit of time under his belt, he's got the opportunity to showcase what he can do with his arm. His weapons aren't the best, but they did bring over A.J. Brown to pair with Devontae Smith. So he's got some decent weapons to throw to now that could be big there. Kyler Murray, again, he was having an MVP season until he got hurt. So again, that potential's still there. Tom Brady's the weird one for me in tier 2. I think this is the first year where statistically he declines a little bit. Still think he's high quality. But just a little bit different looking offense. His receivers are a little banged up. So I just don't know how confident I feel that he's going to keep that same level of production. He's still going to win games because he's Tom Brady, but from a fantasy perspective, I don't know how he's going to fare because I think there's guys below him that'll do better. Looking at tier 3, I think that's another solid group. You got Russell Wilson, Dak Prescott, Trey Lance, Stafford, Aaron Rodgers, Kirk Cousins, and Derek Carr. This is one that I think is an interesting group because Rodgers, Cousins, and Wilson, to me, all seem like they're ranked too low. Kirk Cousins has finished as a top 5 fantasy quarterback, I think 3 out of the last 6 seasons or something like that. Even though he's not a very good winner, he does put up 4,000, 4,500 plus yards, close to 30 touchdowns every year. And he doesn't throw a lot of interceptions. So he's one I think is a little far down there. And, of course, Aaron Rodgers, I think the main reason they have him down there so far is no Davante Adams. But if you look at that offense, he's still got plenty of weapons. And, again, he's Aaron Rodgers.
I always love Matt Stafford as a good number 2 quarterback. I always like to keep a guy like him in the back. He's consistent. He's gonna pass the ball a lot. And then I don't know. How do you feel about Trey Lance? You think he's going to get some good time or what?
He's a question mark for me just because we haven't seen him do much. Obviously, he's got huge upside with the ability to run, but we really don't know what he can do passing the ball, and he just hasn't had that chance. I know Jimmy G's still around. He's probably going to get traded. but maybe they hold on to Jimmy just to see what Trey Lance can do.
Yeah.
I think if you're sitting in rounds 9 through 10, 11, you've got really good position players and you don't have a quarterback yet, and Trey Lance is still there, I may take him over a guy like Derek Carr or Jameis Winston,
Right.
Matt Ryan, Ryan Tannehill. I doubt he slips that far. But just because of that potential upside, he is huge. But because he hasn't done much, that might also hinder him because you'd rather go with a guy like Aaron
Right.
Rodgers or Stafford. But I do
Yeah.
think he has some potential.
Yeah. I might, in my opinion, I'd probably stay away from him for the draft time. I feel like he's the type of guy who somebody may pick on the off chance that he does play. But if, like you said, if Jimmy G is getting back out there, I see him getting dropped off of a team and then, waiting on some sort of something to change, and then you pick him up off waivers or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
So
also. Oh, go
go
ahead.
ahead. No, you're good, man. Keep going.
I was going to say, I know we were just talking about this right before the podcast starts, but Russell Wilson to me is at 50-50. Like I said, he has burned me so many seasons. I can't even tell. I think I've drafted him out of the last 4 seasons for sure 3 times guaranteed. And every year it just seems like he has like one off game, then one on game, one off game, one on game. And so I put him as actually one of my guys who I feel like could be a bust. But like I said, I think he could be a 50-50. He's either going to – I feel like this year is either going to be he has to boom or he has to bust. There's no like just middle marker. But
Yeah, Russell's a very interesting case. I think he comes to a team that's got better weapons overall. Maybe not the true upside of a DK Metcalf, but he's coming to a team that's got a pretty solid offensive line as long as they all hold together. Really good running game. They've got multiple guys in the backfield and then some talented receivers. So I think to me, Russell's going to finish top 5 potentially. He does run the ball some, not as much as he used to. But again, I just like the situation he's in.
yeah,
As a Chiefs fan, obviously don't want to see him succeed.
exactly.
But from a fantasy perspective, I have him listed as my fantasy quarterback number 6. So just a couple spots higher. But I understand why you could be upset because if you have a guy burn you several times over the years, it's hard to stick with
Yeah.
him.
Yeah, he's just killed me.
So a big point of this episode is to talk about some sleeper picks, so guys that you can get in later rounds that aren't your top tier. So looking at quarterbacks, and I don't know how you want to define sleeper pick. I think quarterbacks are the one position that a sleeper could be anywhere from 8 to 20,
Yeah,
whereas other
right.
positions we're going to look really deep. So a couple of guys I have on my list of sleeper picks. Trey Lance is kind of that question mark. I wouldn't quite call him a sleeper because he is top 15. So in this case, he's number 11. So that would be
Yeah.
one of the guys that would get drafted as a QB1 in a 12-man league. But I got him there. My first one lower on the list, I have Jameis Winston at 19,
Yeah, he's a
or
good pick.
Fantasy Pros have him at 19. I think now that he's got, I mean, it's really his team. Yes, interceptions have been a problem in the past, but he's got a big arm, throws
Yeah.
a ton, can run if he needs to, but he's still got so many weapons. And if, wow, I'm forgetting the receiver's name, but Michael Thomas, who's been hurt for
Yeah.
the last 5 years, if he
Yeah, if he
comes
ever
back and
comes
is
back.
playing well, I think he's got a big potential there.
Right. Yeah.
Matt Ryan at 20, another decent one. He's got much better weapons than what he's had, but he's older. I think the biggest question mark for me, which is way further down, that I think he's going to end up being a top 15 quarterback, and that's Baker Mayfield.
I agree.
Different scenario from what he had with Cleveland, but I think
Yeah.
he's also in a year where he has to prove he's still capable of being a number 1 QB.
Right.
He still has decent weapons. If Christian McCaffrey's healthy, he's going to dump the ball to him a ton.
Yeah.
DJ Moore's a great top receiver. And then, of course, Robbie Anderson on the outside. They've got a couple of guys there. But Baker Mayfield's kind of my big question mark. I think he's one that most people are going to skip drafting. But if you can get him late and you still don't have a quarterback, I'm comfortable him being my QB1. What do you think?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that he was in a situation where he just needed something new. I think the situation in Cleveland was just kind of a toxic situation. I think it's a toxic situation kind of for everybody. I just don't know if I love that franchise that much. But, I mean, he has some upside. The Panthers have decent weapons, and they've made what they have work in the past. So I think this is a year where we're going to find out, is Baker Mayfield still a quality quarterback? Can he go and actually make something of himself in the league? Or is this the year that we find out, hey, he's a QB2 and he's going to be sitting? So I think, again, it's like a 50-50 toss-up with him, but I could definitely see him, especially towards the beginning of the year before things get hectic and he's getting in his head a little bit more, him having some good games right off the bat to just like start to make a mark over there in Carolina.
Yeah. And we'll touch on this again here when we talk about rookies, but just real quick, do you like any of the rookie quarterbacks? Kenny Pickett's probably the one who's primed to be a starter most likely.
Right.
Any thoughts there on any of them?
Yeah, I mean, I like Kenny Pickett, although like I like him as a player, but I feel like the weapons that he has is kind of negligible. So I don't know if I would necessarily see him. I don't know if I don't see him having a breakout season this year. It could be, hey, he's a really good quarterback. We need to start giving him some offensive weapons this year. So I could see him maybe putting up decent numbers, but I don't see him breaking fantasy charts or anything this year. Same with Desmond Ryder. I never really liked him back in college that much. I never really found him like an extravagant quarterback, so I don't have a ton of faith in him. I feel like this year's quarterback class wasn't quality in terms of how it has been. So I am not going to draft any rookie quarterbacks this year, but if you're high on Kenny Pickett, that would be the only guy I would say.
Yeah, I don't like any of them either. I think Desmond Ridder has the best chance this season to get the most playing time just because Atlanta is a terrible team and their starting quarterback is Marcus Mariota. So if they want to just go ahead and toss out the rookie to see what he can do, great. I think long term, if you're in a dynasty league and you have to draft a younger guy later, I think Malik Willis is a decent pick there. I think this is probably the last year you see Ryan Tannehill really control the offense before they start looking at something different. But yeah, I don't really like the rookie quarterbacks at all. Okay, let's jump into running backs. Running backs are again fairly deep this year.
Yeah.
Very top heavy though. You definitely got your top 10 is a pretty solid list. Over here, let me switch back to Fantasy Pros list. So they've got Christian McCaffrey's RB1, then Jonathan Taylor 2, Austin Eckler 3rd. There's their tier 1, and then tier 2's got Dalvin Cook, Najee Harris, Derrick Henry, DeAndre Swift, and Joe Mixon. And then tier 3 is pretty solid too. My one caveat with fantasy running backs, there's two things. One, a rookie running back is going to finish top 10.
Yeah.
And two, over the last, I think it's like 9 of the last 10 seasons, the guy that's finished first or second has been a running back under the age of 25. Right. So again, it tells you that's a younger guy. And that is not Christian McCaffrey. And that's not Austin Eckler. So who do you like out of the running back group, especially at the top? Are you, if you had the first pick, would you go Christian McCaffrey? Would you go Jonathan Taylor?
I am a huge fan of Jonathan Taylor. I love watching him play. I was unbelievably lucky 2 seasons ago and drafted him off of a whim, and he just balled out for me. So personally, for me, just off of it's similar. Christian McCaffrey and Saquon Barkley are the same for me. I feel like both of them have really good potential upside, but McCaffrey gets used so much in a season that, I just think they really messed him up using him. He was getting 40, 50 snaps or at least targets and snaps combined for the first couple seasons. And I feel like that is just so much wear and tear on a body that I am just a little bit skeptical of him. I've never really drafted Christian McCaffrey. So out of those two, I like Jonathan Taylor the most.
Yeah, I like Taylor the most too. What do you think of Derrick Henry? Is he still going to keep up what he's been doing, or is this finally the year we see the wear and tear slow him down?
I don't feel like he is going to have necessarily a breakout season. However, Tennessee's kind of lost the stuff they had. Their wide receivers aren't as good as they were. Obviously, last year, Julio Jones didn't pan out for them very well.
And you move on from A.J. Brown.
Yeah. So there could be a chance that he is getting heavy snap counts, but I think teams are figuring him out a little bit more, figuring out how to play him and where his tendencies are. So I don't see him necessarily zooming up there, but I still see him as a top 5 guaranteed for sure.
Yeah. I'm really big on DeAndre Swift. I think he's that younger than 25 running back that has the potential to really break out.
Yeah,
He's on a team in the Lions who are going nowhere, so they've got nothing to lose but try
just
and just throw all the talent on the field. So I think he's
yeah,
probably him and Najee Harris, just because they're both young and they're going to be a primary portion of their offense, have the most
yeah.
upside of the younger group. But I also kind of like Saquon Barkley this year.
I
He's
do
had a
too. I
rough.
think he's
He's
healthy.
had if he's healthy. Yeah, he's been rough the last 2 years, but if he's healthy, they've worked on that O line a little bit, and
Yeah,
clearly Daniel Jones isn't throwing the ball a whole lot. So
yeah,
I think Saquon could be a guy that gets potential to
yeah,
really jump up that list. And of course, as you go down, Aaron Jones at number 11 is still really solid. Even without Devontae Adams there, he's going to be a large portion of that offense. Javonte Williams in Denver, he's the lead back there. Had a rookie season last year, looked very impressive. Nick
yeah.
Chubb, Mr. Consistency,
Right.
slid all the way down to 14. I think
Yeah,
that's
that's surprising to
only
me.
because Kareem Hunt's still there, and so they think Kareem Hunt takes away
Yeah.
some of his touchdown potential.
Now I'll say
Um,
if you are planning on handcuffing, that's a running back duo that's the only running back duo I'd be comfortable handcuffing because they really do split time, or at least they did last year.
yeah.
So if you are planning on handcuffing, that's one that you could do.
Now, Kareem Hunt's asked for a trade, and it doesn't sound like it's going to happen. So that could
Right.
factor into one, how much the Browns want to play him, and two, what he's willing to contribute if he doesn't want to be there. Um,
What's your top bust in the top 20 here?
in the top 20, I'm split. I want to say Austin Eckler just because I think he's starting to be injury prone, but he's also so talented that he might start out so hot
Yeah.
and keep it going. I'm a little skeptical that Leonard Fournette is going to keep up what he's been doing down at number 12. He really impressed last year and pretty much pushed Ronald Jones out. But again, he's been injury prone, so that's what I'm looking at. Guys that have injury history.
Yeah.
I feel pretty comfortable with most of them. I think I'd still be hesitant drafting McCaffrey from a fantasy perspective, just because you don't know if he's going to be there in the second half of the season.
Yeah.
I think one that's in the top 20 that I think I would say is going to be a true bust, but Ezekiel Elliott,
Yep.
he's been slowing down and hasn't been super healthy, but now they don't have as many receivers, so they're going to feed him a lot. But
Yeah.
he's still got Tony Pollard sitting behind him
Yeah.
and taking snaps, and he's a better pass catcher than
Right.
LA. So I think he's another one that could slide out of the top 20.
Yeah, that's my top bust this year is Ezekiel Elliott. I mean, the first 6 or 7 games of last season, what he was averaging 2 fumbles and was really slow off the line. And honestly, I feel like it's not just me. I think a lot of people are pretty high on Tony Pollard this year, and the kid's a workhorse. I mean, I say kid, he's young, he's older than me, but he's a workhorse, and he's durable, he stays in, he gets snaps, and he's got a good little bit of speed behind him. So I could see them using him a lot more than Ezekiel this year. So I put Zeke as my top bust this year.
So how about guys outside of the top 20 that are most primed to finish top 20, top 15? I'm going to start with one that I'm surprised is as low as he is, and I think it's probably just because of the injury concerns. But if he's back healthy, J.K. Dobbins is going to shoot right back up. This guy was getting drafted top 3 or 4 picks last year before the injury.
Yeah.
And he may, I don't know when he's going to come back. I don't know if it's game 1 or game 2, but he's been improving. To me, he's too far down the list. So that's where I start. And even a couple guys ahead of him, Cam Akers coming off an injury. He's all the way down at 19.
Yeah.
He's another one that before injury was going to finish top 7, top 8. But who do you like in that tier 4, tier 5, the 17 through 40 range, to finish much higher than they're listed at?
Like I said, Tony Pollard, I'm big on him. I think he has a really good upside to finish higher. I also feel like towards the end of the season, as much as I don't like him, Melvin Gordon actually was having a solid end of his season last year for the Broncos. He kind of was coming into his form a little bit. I feel like if the Broncos decide to run it a little bit more, then he could be the case. But with Russell Wilson, I'm not for sure that he's even going to really get too many attempts. Have they give him attempts? I do see him being, good enough with the ball, having a little bit more time in Denver now to make some plays and make something happen. But like you said, I like J.K. Dobbins too. I feel like he was so high up on everybody's boards, and I mean his like highlight reels and stats were ridiculous. So if he can get back to that type of form, I see him climbing pretty high as well. Well, that's also if Lamar is willing to hand it off to him also.
Yeah. Couple other guys I like in that range that I think could finish significantly higher. Antonio Gibson's one that last couple years has slowly slid down. He was top 10, top 15. Now he's slid down.
Yep.
I still like him because I don't know how I feel about the rest of their running back committee. And if he is decent early on, then they're going to feed him the ball. So I think he's got potential. Elijah Mitchell out in San Francisco, he really took over that spot last year from the rest of that crew. And, Raheem Mostert moved on. They did draft a rookie who's probably going to end up taking over at the end of the year. But I think Elijah Mitchell's got potential early on. Then A.J. Dillon's the other one. He's listed as running back 23. Aaron Rodgers loves him, and he's a workhorse when Aaron Jones is struggling, and he's great inside the 20. Goal line feature back, good pass catcher. So I think he's another one that finishes significantly higher. Here's another one. I guess you mentioned this earlier off air, but as a potential bust. I don't know if he's a bust because he's listed at 22, but Josh Jacobs. Tell me what you were thinking on him.
Yeah, I just I saw a lot of hype behind him when he first got into the league, and being a Chiefs fan, I pay a lot of attention to the Raiders just to make sure that we're going to be all right every time we play them. And I just haven't really been impressed with him. I feel like he is. I feel like when he was coming out of college, a lot of people were high on that. He gets through lines, he's busting through that stuff, and also his vision. And I just haven't seen him really hitting holes that well. I haven't seen him really get out and get tons of yards per carry. I'm seeing him getting short yards every carry, and I'm seeing them not go to him as much. I mean, they've got Darren Waller, who is becoming a huge target. Obviously, third and Renfro, as they say, he's becoming a big target. And obviously, I mean, they've got Davante Adams this year, so I really don't see him getting too many attempts compared to past years.
So let's do some deep sleepers at running back. So these are guys that are probably 35 plus as far as their ranking. My first guy off the list is Romandre Stevenson with the Patriots. I think Damian Harris really blew on the screen last year, but then Romandre took over a lot of it. And going into the training camp this year, they're not as high on Harris as they are Stevenson. So I think he's one who's going to get a majority of the looks just because he's a little bit better pass catcher than Harris. So I like him a lot. And then next for me is Kenneth Walker at 37, the rookie that's going out to Seattle. Seattle, even without Russell Wilson, they're going to run the ball a ton. And now that Chris Carson has retired, it's pretty much Rashad Penny and Kenneth Walker. So he's one that you'll probably be able to get in later rounds and may not be significant until later in the season. But if you get a chance to snatch him up, he's one that I like too.
Yeah, I like him as well. And like you said, I mean, I don't see Seattle throwing the ball too much. I don't like the quarterback situation there at all. So I see a lot of handoffs, and I see them trying to beef up that O-line and just run it up the gut. So I like him. And then I'm just going to say it for the sake of it. It could happen if Clyde Edwards-Helaire stays healthy and we actually utilize him for some catching, some off to the side, maybe a little bubble catching. I think he can get some good points. It really just depends on how much are we going to put him in, how much are we going to put Ronald Jones in. I don't know what it's going to look like in terms of, are we going to try and go heavy and just run it up the gut, or are we going to try and stick to a pass heavy offense? If we're staying a little more pass heavy, I could see Clyde getting a lot more touches, especially because we know Travis is going to get doubled and people are going to have their eyes on the guy that are, our new guys on the team. So I could see him getting some sneaky passes.
Yeah, and a couple other quick ones I'll hit you with. I like Khalil Herbert a lot with Chicago. KU fan. He played at KU a couple years before he transferred out. He looked pretty decent last year when he got chances because of injuries. David Montgomery's a little bit slower of a back, not as explosive, so I think he's got some potential to take over that role. Then all the way down at 62, I like Chuba Hubbard. He
Yeah.
played a lot last year with McCaffrey out. He's one that I think if you have McCaffrey and you have a bench spot, you should go ahead and take him because if McCaffrey goes down or misses some time, Hubbard's going to get a bunch of looks. So I love him a lot. And then as I'm scrolling through this list, there's really a lot of good options at running
Yeah,
back.
I was
I
just gonna
think
say,
once you get in this range, you got to start looking at some rookies. But Kenyon Drake's all the way down at 61. So
exactly.
if you're not
That's what,
huge on Josh Jacobs, Kenyon
yeah.
Drake still looked decent last year with split time.
Yeah, and I don't know how much Miami's going to run the ball, but Sony Michel's a good running back. I mean, he proved it in New England. He's a tough running back, and he can get yards. So I say in the later rounds, he's a guy that if you're lacking in the running back position and you're looking for somebody, I could see him getting some touches this year as well.
Yeah, and then one other one, again, rookie Tyrion Davis Price that San Francisco drafted. He could end up as the RB1 or lead RB2 some point in the season. So a lot of good options at running back. Let's jump to receiver now. Again, receiver is probably the most in-depth position group. There's a ton of studs out there, so we're not going to spend too much time on the studs. Let's just jump straight into guys that are a little bit lower on your list that think have the best potential to jump or are guys that could clearly add value to your team.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say first off the bat, I really do. I really am liking Skye Moore more and more. As we watch him and we're seeing him, I think he is a close match in terms of style to what Tyreek was doing. And I could see at least that relationship with Patrick dwelling a little bit more. So, yeah, I like to see him out there. And then another guy who's fallen a lot lower that we were talking about, and Michael Thomas. I mean, if he can stay healthy, I mean, he was an absolute beast when he was healthy. So if he can stay healthy, I see him coming up that board. I mean, he's sitting down there at 25 right now. I see him busting up at least into the top 20 if he stays healthy, if not up even higher than that.
One of my favorite guys on this list who's a little lower, and I think that's just because of injury, and I think he'll finish a lot higher, but that's Cortland Sutton. Again, not a Denver fan because I love the Chiefs, but I think Cortland Sutton has some of the best potential outside of the top 10 to finish
Yeah.
top 10. Russell loves to have quality threats down the field, and Cortland Sutton is one of those guys who he can kind of fulfill that Tyler Lockett role he's used to having. Love him a lot. As we go down lower in the list, I really think Allen Lazard is listed too low at 42.
Yeah.
The Packers lose Davante Adams, lose MVS, draft a rookie receiver for the first time in Aaron Rodgers' tenure. I think Rodgers loves Lazard, and he's been there so long. They've got great chemistry. I think he's one that finishes top 20. May not be a guy that wins you your league as a number one, but if he's your number two receiver, or you're able to sneak him in as a number two, I think you're going to do just fine there.
Yeah, another sneaky guy down a little ways. I mean, we saw it in the playoffs. Gabriel Davis, I think he's a solid pick. Guy's got speed, and he's got a great quarterback, and he has some other threats on his team at wide receiver, which is going to allow him to be open more often. I like him. And then obviously, if we're talking rookies, I was big on Treylon Burks before he got drafted. I mean, I think he's kind of like going to be a mini Julio Jones, or even like I know a lot of people were comparing him to Calvin Johnson in a way. He's just so big and so long. I see them throwing that ball up to him and letting him get up and get it.
Yeah, I think that's great there. Two other guys I like later because they're further down the depth chart, but they have a lot of opportunity. Josh Palmer with the Chargers. He's probably going to slide in as their number 3, number 4 receiver. Keenan Allen's going to get hurt at some point. He's going to miss time. Mike Williams is going to get double teamed. Palmer's got some potential to take some snaps there. He's number 69 receiver. Next one I like is Wandel Robinson with the Giants. The Giants, I don't think they're going to be a pass-heavy team, but between him and Kadarius Toney, they've got two really young receivers that have potential. So he could be one that, as the season progresses, starts doing more. And then the one I like the most as my deep sleeper is Jalen Tolbert at 81. The Cowboys have a lot of holes at receiver right now with losing Amari Cooper. Michael Gallup's going to start the season on the injured list. Same with James Washington. They also lost Cedric Wilson, so he immediately slides in as their number 2. And CD Lamb's the one, he's going to take most of that attention. So I think he's got another great chance there.
Yeah.
Let's jump into tight ends. Tight ends, I think, is another one that's super deep. Outside of your top guys, I think there's a lot of potential late. So again, not going to talk about the top guys. Mike Gesicki. So everyone I want to mention, these are all outside of the top 10. Dawson Knox at 11, Mike Gesicki at 12 or 13, depending on what you're looking at. Tyler Higbee at 17. The Rams loved him as a tight end option until he got hurt. I think he's got a lot of opportunities to come back in.
Yeah.
Robert Tonyan from Green Bay. He's going to be very touchdown dependent, but I think Rodgers loves him in the red zone. And now that he doesn't have Devontae Adams as a target down there, I think Tonyan's going to get a lot more looks. And then personally, my favorite, he's listed at tight end number 20, and I'm going to screw it up. But Albert O is how I'm going to call it because I can't say his last name. From Denver. Again, I'm really high on the Denver offense this year. He is one who, now that Noah Fant's been sent out, Albert is going to be the guy getting all the number one reps. And Russell loves his tight ends. He uses them as a security blanket when there's nothing open down the field. So I think he's got potential as the season progresses to really stand out. Don't know if he's going to win you a league, but he's going to be a guy that as the season progresses, you're like, dang, I won a couple of games because of him.
Yeah. Another guy I like down there at number 25 is Hayden Hurst. I mean, just in terms of the Cincinnati offense, we saw Zuma get a lot of work last year. Obviously, he's gone. Hayden Hurst coming from Atlanta. I've always liked him. I always thought he was good at getting open, a hard worker. So I could see him fitting in really well in Cincinnati, getting a lot of touches when guys out there on the outside are getting doubled or jammed. I like Hayden Hurst down there at 25.
How about let's jump ship real quick to rookies. Any rookies that just really stand out to you? I think the three, I guess really four for me. We've already touched on Skye Moore quite a bit.
Yeah.
I really like Breece Hall as the running back at the Jets. The Jets are a dumpster fire of a team. He's going to get plenty of opportunity, so he's going to fill the stat sheet. I think Drake London with Atlanta is the receiving option. Outside of Kyle Pitts, he really doesn't have much going against him. So he's got potential just for volume. And then I really like Chris Olave with New Orleans. Good down the field threat, speed guy. Those are kind of my picks. And of course, you mentioned it too. I like Treylon Burks. Doesn't have a lot of competition at receiver. He's up against an aging Robert Woods. So I think he's got a good spot there too.
Right. Yeah. If I mention one more, I would say if Pittsburgh gets anything going, George Pickens. I mean, I don't know if you saw that highlight from the other day. Kid's got some pretty good skill, and that catch was pretty sweet the other day. That tippy toe in the backfield. I see him, at least getting 50% of the passes from Pittsburgh, whoever the quarterback ends up being. I like him over there. I think he's one of their only weapons. That's a real weapon over there. So I could see him getting quite a bit of touches, or at least quite a bit of attempts.
And then there's tons of running backs. James Cook with Buffalo, Dameon Pierce with Houston, Isaiah Spiller with the Chargers. Lots of guys here. Isaiah Pacheco, honestly, with the Chiefs, he could do something late. So let's finish this up by talking Chiefs real quick. Who do you think of the group of wide receivers finishes as obviously Travis Kelce is going to be the top fantasy target on this team. But out of that receiving core, who do you think finishes the highest in fantasy points?
I'm really kind of torn. I totally see Skye Moore being a super good fit for Patrick, but I really think it depends on the kind of defenses we're seeing this year. I mean, last year, obviously, from the previous year before that, we got stuck having some short game, but towards the end of that year, we were getting really good at the short game, and I think guys were kind of starting to play up a little bit more. Also, losing Tyreek Hill as a threat, I see teams thinking that we're going to stick short and playing a little bit farther up. Also, not having as much respect for a rookie, so I could definitely see Skye Moore getting some long balls and running up some stats.
Yeah, I think for me, Juju's the only receiver I feel comfortable plugging into my lineup every day. I do think McColl's going to have several games here and there that are going to be big, but I don't know if he's consistent week to week. Marquez Valdez-Scantling, I don't know, again, if he's going to do enough. I think Juju's going to be your primary target getter. as far as what was left over from Tyreek, but Skye Moore's got the biggest potential. I'm not very high on CEH. I think he's too injury prone. I'm not really going after Chiefs running backs. I think Ronald Jones is going to be touchdown dependent if he makes the roster. But Pacheco could be one that sneaks in late, especially if Clyde's struggling.
I like Fortson too. Fortson's good if he's staying healthy. He's a good little T too.
Fantasy football is coming up, guys, right around the corner. This is week 2 of preseason, so we've got a couple more weeks until the season starts. Lots to look forward to. We're going to jump on periodically throughout the season and talk about other things regarding fantasy football, trade candidates, how to manage the waiver wire, that kind of stuff. This will not be the only time you see Alex with me. We'll also do some more Chiefs talk throughout the season. But I think that's kind of a good place to wrap up for the fantasy football portion. Like I said, we'll jump on with more later. So if you guys liked what you listened to, please follow us on Facebook and Twitter and shout us out. Let us know what you thought. Leave your fantasy tips for us as well. If you have any players you really got your eye on or guys you want to avoid, let us know. And wherever you're listening to us from, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or YouTube, hit that subscribe button and share with your friends. And until next time, we'll catch you guys in a future episode.